Donald Trump has a lot of pet projects across Washington, but the one he seems to talk about the most is the big, beautiful ballroom that he is building after demolishing the historic East Wing of the White House. Trump has said many times that his ballroom will be the finest of its kind in the world. He has also said many times that the project will be fully funded by private donors and not taxpayers like you.
We didn't ask for any tax money. We have no taxes. This is taxpayer free. We have no taxpayer putting up 10 cents.
That statement, like so many things with this Trump presidency, was, of course, a lie. According to new reporting from the Washington Post, quote, the Trump administration plans to spend at least $900 million for construction projects on the White House grounds, a significantly larger price tag than has been previously reported, and one that would be covered primarily by taxpayers, according to records reviewed by the Post. And the projected cost of the East Wing construction alone was $600 million, with half of that coming from taxpayers. Remember, Trump initially said that the cost would be $200 million. What a bargain. And all that money would come from private donations. The Post notes that the money for these construction projects is being routed through a small White House office, which typically holds just a few $1,000,000 and handles smaller upkeep-type projects. Joining me now to discuss all of this is Julie Roginski, Democratic strategist and author of the Salty Politics newsletter on Substack, and Tim O'Brien, senior executive editor at Bloomberg Opinion and MS Now political analyst. So, Tim, the common denominator of so many of these Trump vanity projects is this sidestepping of Congress and hiding of specific details like scope and cost and where the money is coming from. And the ballroom, in many ways, seems to be the most egregious of all of these. But my question to you is, which is worse? Having the money come from private companies that he is shaking down, maybe for some kind of quid pro quo, or having the money come from taxpayers who he is bilking and who do not have a say at all in whether they fund this project?
I will dodge having to answer that directly by saying they're both equally bad.
Okay.
And they're bad for different reasons. And on the one hand, you know, you've got Congress, which constitutionally is meant to retain the power of the purse. And so many times in this administration, a Republican-controlled Congress has simply allowed the president to run circles around them. And it's not just a matter of prerogative or power. It's about making sure money isn't improperly appropriated or improperly allocated, and that American taxpayers know what is being done with their hard-earned wages that have been turned into tax payments to the federal government. It's particularly peculiar, troubling, and bad that a Republican administration is doing this when historically Republicans have invaded against the misuse of tax dollars and big government. So that's problematic. Secondly, it is problematic that taxpayers have to foot what is essentially a gargantuan vanity project that's being routed in a very nebulous and opaque way by design, I believe. Because if Trump wanted to ensure that taxpayers weren't going to be on the hook for any of these projects, and that everything that was being done was above board, that, for example, donors to these projects couldn't curry favor with the administration, i.e. use these projects as a form of a bribe, or that the money was being spent in the way that Trump actually says it's planning to, which we have no clear idea whether or not that's even going to happen. There's all sorts of malfeasance hanging off this that should trouble anybody who cares about good government.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention we don't know who these contracts are going to
right.
And what kind of process that looks like. Julie, so in a midterm election year that is largely about affordability and economic outcomes and resentment about the success of the Trump economic agenda or lack thereof, do you think something like this, you know, spending $1 billion on White House vanity projects is likely to break through?
It is so emblematic of the corruption and so emblematic of the waste that I think it's actually the best visual representation of everything that people are complaining about. Look, I'm going to give some free advice to whichever presidential candidate wants to take it. whoever wants to be president needs to simply say that the very first act that that person's going to do at 12:01 p.m. on January 20th, 2029, is detonate that East Wing. Just tear it down. I don't care how much it costs in taxpayer money, not because there's not bigger priorities in the world, but because it is just so emblematic of everything else, that if you're tearing that down, you're tearing down the entire corrupt structure of this administration, all of the waste, all of the fraud, all of the abuse that Republicans always talk about. This is it in one fell swoop. And this is something that is very easy because it's so visual. We're a visual people. We're a visual electorate. And when people see something like this coming up at their expense, or as Tim pointed out, the expense of potentially companies that are being shaken down, all it tells you is that he's not focusing on the price of gas. He's not focusing on what things cost at the grocery store. He's not focusing on how to put your kids through college or buy them a Little League uniform or anything else. He's focusing on himself, building a big, beautiful ballroom, gold-plated for himself. Beautiful is the eye of the beholder. But nevertheless, this is what he's focused on. He's basically that same shady developer who all of us who grew up in New York remember from the 80s, who's now taking taxpayer dollars and using it to build himself yet another gilded palace now in the people's house. And it's just something that people can understand viscerally and be offended by, and it's emblematic of everything else.
Yeah, and I think you're right that it is much more visual than some of the other corruption scandals, like who's buying Trump crypto and things like that. Like, that's a little bit more abstract and hard.
An even better question, but yes.
Yes, I mean, these are all excellent questions, and I wish people had infinite bandwidth to pay attention to all of them, but given our constraints that we face in reality, very good visual here.